Hi everyone, welcome to Dennis Deep Cuts, the 68th installment of this fine YouTube series. Today we're going to talk about the best records of 2024. Let's see what happens. So, I'm sorry that it took me ages to get this program done. I'm not going to harp on about my heart attack, but one of the things I told myself after I had a heart attack was that I'm not going to push myself and force myself to do stuff that I don't have to do. I was supposed to do this around Christmas, and the holidays came and life came at you, and then I was like, damn, I'm not going to push it because I don't have to do this show. I love to talk about music. I love to nerd out about, art and culture and so on and so forth. But I don't have to do this. I do this because I love it. So yeah, there we go. That's why it took me some time. 2024, last year, was a wonderful year for music. It was a pleasure to sit down and just go through all the records that I bought. And it was not easy to find the top 10 albums because there were so many good records last year. But here's a list, and per usual, it might change in time, but this is what I'm stuck with today. First, here's a couple of honorable mentions. On 10th place, we have Anja with the album Codes. If you don't know who Anja is, she used to be the singer of my favorite German goth rock band, Ex Mein Deutschland. They put out some marvelous records in the 80s, and they put out their last record in 1990. And this is the first music she's put out since then. She became a TV video producer, and then she became a visual artist. So this is quite the comeback. The music is dark, gothic, rock, slightly post-punkish, and it has touches of like 90s industrial music into it. Her voice sounds great, fantastic. Not quite the operatic madness it had in the 80s, but it's crystal clear and super cool. Half the record is in German, half the record is in English. I like the German bits a little bit more, even though I don't fully understand German. It's a bit more commanding. I think there's something super cool to be said about a 66-year-old woman putting out a record like this, because maybe this is a different conversation, but the record industry has not been kind to people aging. The record industry is obsessed with the newest thing, the youth, the young things. But I do feel there's been a bit of a paradigm shift in the last couple of years where, older people can put out music and be relevant. I mean, women has had it especially tough. I mean, men has been sort of allowed to grow old in rock music, but women not so much. So I welcome this. I think it's super cool that, after 33 or 34 years, a 66-year-old woman puts out this type of music, and that just that in itself is wonderful. So in 9th place we have Uniform with their new album American Standard. Uniform from New York. Since their debut album Perfect World in 2015, they put out bunch of bangers of like noise rock with industrial touches in it, and they're a pretty fantastic band. But I have to say, this is probably their magnum opus. I think this record is just fantastic. It's demanding, it's punishing, it's raw, it's violent, it's unapologetic, in your face, and that's both musically and lyrically. The title track, American Standard, is the complete A-side, and it starts with the singer Michael screaming about his body dysmorphia, like a call and response to himself, and then it goes off into like 16 minutes or just like this is super sludgy, like one chord riff that just slowly morphs. And then the last couple of minutes is just some blast beat black metal. And it's just one of those records that doesn't let up. It's relentless in its attack. It's relentless in its approach. And it's kind of a weird thing to say, but if Swans were super dirty and super aggressive, maybe this is kind of what they would sound like, which is a weird thing to say because Swans were quite dirty and aggressive. But there's something about this record that's just so in your face. The lyrics deals with bulimia, but Michael talked about that openly, and mental health issues, and they are really uncomfortable, but like in a really fantastic way. They're like right there in your face, and yeah, this is quite the ride. I mean, it's one of those records that it's quite demanding, but just listening through it, it's a fantastic statement. It's a fantastic piece of art, and yeah, it's the best Uniform record by far, I think, to date. So check it out. So what I'll do is I'll buy records over the year, and I mean, I buy a lot of records. I listen to them, and then at the end of the year, I'll sit down and I bust out all the records that were released in 2024, and I just go through them, and then I was like, these are the top 20, and then it's the top 15, and then it's the top 10. And one of the things I noticed this year that it's a lot of artists that are older. And I don't know if it's me getting older or it's the fact that these artists put out fantastic records. I would think it's the latter. But it was quite interesting when I realized that it's just like a lot of old artists has found their footing and put out some of the finest music of their career, I have to say. And there'll be plenty more of that. What the oldest artist on this list, we find her on number 8, and it's Kim Gordon with our new record, The Collective. Kim Gordon is this presence in alternative music that's been around longer than I've known alternative music. Sonic Youth, of course, started in 1981. So my entire life as someone that's been into odd and weird music, she's always been this presence, the cool bass player from Sonic Youth. When Sonic Youth broke up in 2011, she did a couple of projects, and a couple of years ago, she put out her first solo record. And I would say The Collective is a bit of a continuation of that. And it is wild that a woman that turns 72 in April puts out the record of this year on my list that has the most progressive and modern music on it. It's kind of electropunk, but not really. It has a lot of cool drum beats, almost like trapped or hip hop stuff. A lot of noisy textures and layers, some weird guitar, and everything is sort of like focused around Kim Gordon's cool voice. Obviously, maybe not a record for everyone, but it's a record that tries to be relevant and tries to put out something new and something fresh and something exciting, and really push the boundaries of what modern music can sound like. And I love it. I think it's such a cool statement. It's such a cool record. It's like, this is what I'm going to do. And I mean, it ties in a little bit what I talked about Anja Huve. It's like, this is the type of music people can do now when they're in the 70s. And I think that 10, 15 years ago, that would be almost unthinkable. So yeah, I cannot recommend this record enough. I think it's super cool and just inventive, weird, and wild. Kim Gordon. So in 7th place, we have Swedish psychedelic rockers, Maidavale, with their 3rd album, Sundog. Maidavale is just a fantastic band. A couple of years back, me and my wife were at this festival up here in Sweden, and we were tired. We were on our way home, and I remember a friend told me, "Go check out Maidavale. They're pretty cool." So we said, "Let's go watch a song or two, and then go home." And 4 songs into the set, I've texted my management saying like Maidavale should open up for us when we play Numio. And then after the set, I ran to the merch booth and bought both their albums, and they are truly spectacular. The show didn't happen. I don't know if you remember this thing called the pandemic, but that show got canceled. So maybe 2025 is the year where I get to play together with Maidavale. Maidavale, I mean, they're not trying to reinvent the wheel or anything. They play psychedelic experimental rock with finesse. I think it's by far their best record. The rhythm section is fantastic. The guitar playing is fantastic. Her singing is super cool. And it's one of those propulsive records, dare I say, very groovy, very percussive. And if you're into that sort of 70s psychedelic rock, you need to check out Maidavale. And even better, if you get a chance to go see them live. I saw them live once again this summer. They are magnificent. They're a magnificent live band. So in 6th place, we have Ireland, Dublin's Fontaines D.C. with their 4th record, Romance. Fontaines D.C., if you know them, they're like an indie rock band. I think this is my favorite record of theirs. It's smart, innovative, it's got cool arrangements. Might be slightly more subdued than the previous record, but I think they make up for it in layers, and they make up for it in like cool song arrangements and wonderful songwriting. It's one of those records that really grown on me over the year. Songs like Starburster, Modern World, and Favorites might be some of their best songs of their career, but also some of the best pop songs of 2024. So check it out. On 5th place, we have Sweden's own Thåström with his new record Somliga av oss, which means some of us. Thåström has been a presence on the Swedish music scene since the early 80s, when he was in the biggest Swedish punk band of all time, Ebba Grön. And then from the mid-80s to the early 90s, he was then the biggest alternative rock band in Sweden of all time, called Imperiet. He then moved abroad for a couple of years and did an industrial band called Peace, Love, and Pipples. And this is his 11th solo album. And I love Thåström. He's fantastic. He's 67 now, and he's still one of the biggest Swedish rock artists out there. His solo record's been everything from just heavy guitar rock to really subdued piano ballads, to the last couple of records been really heavy, propulsive, synth driven with a lot of drum loops, that type of style. And on this new record, he returns a little bit to the more subdued Thåström with a lot of piano, a lot of string arrangements. I mean, it's still dark, moody, and I love his lyrics. I love his voice. And I think it's one of his finest solo records in a long time. I love all of his stuff, but this one's like, I love he takes it down a little bit, scales it up, and sings a little bit more. And yeah, I mean, it's all in Swedish, so if you want to check it out, I mean, he's got a full catalog of cool music that you can check out. But this is a good starting point, or maybe Sjöbokarns Vägen, which is maybe my favorite Thåström record. And then, of course, Ebba Grön, the greatest Swedish punk band of all time. It means that he's coming on tour, which is always exciting because he's still a huge draw, and he still packs it in, and the live shows are still really intense and insane. So, yeah, I'm excited. So, on 4th place, probably the least well-known artist on this list. I am talking about Sofi from Leipzig in Germany with their 3rd record, Grotesque. It's the first record in 9 years. Small disclaimer here, or not a disclaimer, but fair warning. I actually sing on this record a little bit. So here's the story. Years ago, Sofi opened up for Invasion at a show in, I think, Munich. And I was completely blown away by them, her. And then so much so that we brought Sofi on tour with us. We refused a couple of years later. And then a couple of years back, she hit me up and said, "Do you want to sing on a couple of songs on my new record?" And I said, "Yes, I don't really know German, but I'll give it my best shot." And here it is. The two songs I'm singing on, it doesn't make a difference for the record. You can barely hear my voice, but I'm there. And that's not why I picked this record. I think this record is, I mean, it's just a wonderful, wonderful record. Sofi plays some sort of weird, experimental post-rock, post-punk, incredibly German, I would say. There's touches of like Einsturz and Neubaut and some small industrial touches. But it also has this cool dynamic range to it. Like some of the songs are really soft and mellow, and some of the soft songs are angular, weird, post-punkish type of songs. And it all ties in with her pretty spectacular voice. I would say that it even reminds me of like a German indie rock Kate Bush or something like that, with like her vocal range and just her expression. And I cannot recommend this record enough. I do this YouTube channel because I love music, and if I happen to make you discover some new music, then that's wonderful. And Sofi's definitely one of those bands, artists that there's something that you should check out. Not a lot of people know about them, and I think more people should, because this is a magnificent record that deserves all the love and praise it can get. And speaking of artists that doesn't need my help, third place we have Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds with their new album Wild God. It's one of those things, like, I don't know how much to talk about Nick Cave, because most people know about him, and most people, if you like Nick Cave, you checked out the new record and you think it's great. It's no secret that I'm a massive fan of Cave. Everything from like the Birthday Party to like the early Bad Seeds through to the later era Bad Seeds, and even a lot of his movie scores. It's quite fascinating to see an artist's career take off. I mean, when Push This Guy Away came out, Nick Cave was well into his 50s. When he became the biggest he's ever been. And I mean, now he's selling out arenas and stadiums across the world. And not by catering to people and saying like, oh, I'm going to give you pop music. And I mean, some of the records that he put out in the last couple of years have been quite dense and difficult to get through. But there's just something about his expression and something about his persona that makes people excited. I think Skeleton Tree and Ghosteen, and even the record with Warren Ellis that came out a couple years ago, Carnage, they've been all great. But one thing that happened when I put on Wild God is that I realized how much I missed the Bad Seeds as a band, as a powerful rock band. And you get a lot of that on this record. And the record is dynamic, and I think that for someone like Nick Cave to put out a record that's this joyous and a celebration of life and love after what he's been through the last 10 years is nothing short of a miracle, I would say. And yeah, the record's wonderful. Me and my wife saw them in Paris at the last show of their Wild God tour in Europe, and it was 2.5 hours of like, like someone saying like, this is how you should play music. Wildly inspiring, and also, you get a sense of like, why am I even bothering with the shit that I'm doing? So yeah, I mean, if you like Nick Cave, you probably checked out this record already. If you don't like Nick Cave, you haven't checked it out, good starting point. Or maybe start with Push This Guy Away, or maybe start with Let Love In, or maybe start with A Birthday Party, or maybe start with, I mean, there's so many facets of his career that you can check out, and they're all quite interesting. And maybe one of these days I will do one of these Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds from Best to Worst album. That'd be interesting. On second place, Shat Pile from Oklahoma City with their second record, Cool World. They did put out a soundtrack album as well, so it might be their third record. Shat Pile is one of those bands that could have possibly made it onto the punk and hardcore list that I did. Thank you for checking that out. Because there's definitely like some hardcore adjacent riffing going on, but I think it's different enough and weird enough that it doesn't really fall into that category. It's kind of noise rock, sludgy. I would say like it's hypnotically violent. It's dirty, raw, and just fucking beautiful. One of those bands that, I mean, I hear a lot of Amphetamine Reptile, that sort of 90s noise rock scene. Obviously, like the obvious reference might be like Jesus Lizard and Melvins. But I also hear a lot of Helmet, early Helmet, though, like those weird staccato riff. But this is even dirtier and rawer and rougher. And the lyrics are really punishing. They're really in your face. I think a lot of it is about like living in some sort of late capitalist nightmare of a world where you're forced to be in a world that you don't really want to live in. The lyrics are quite claustrophobic and you know, quite upsetting, which makes this for fantastic listening. It is one of the records that I returned the most to under the year, and I cannot recommend it enough. If you like heavy, violent music, then you should check out Shat Pile. It's quite something. It's quite something. So, the best album of 2024 had to be The Cure, Songs of a Lost World. Robert Smith, 65. I think he's the youngest of all the old people on this list. Thåström and Nick Cave are 67. There you have it. Old people dominated 2024, which is quite cool, actually. I don't mind it. It gives me hope for my own future as a struggling artist. It's the first Cure record in 16 years. It's their 14th studio record, and I think it's nothing short of a masterpiece. It's like I heard rumblings about this record years ago, and I was like, yeah, it's never going to come out. And when it did come out, oh boy, what a record it is. It's moody, it's atmospheric, it's weirdly aggressive, like distorted bass, there's tons of feedback on the guitar, and it's these sonic textures that are just kind of overwhelming almost. The songwriting is fantastic. Alone, the first single, it was just blew my mind when I heard it the first time, and then, you know, Fragile Thing, End Song, some of the best Cure songs ever written. And in the middle of all this, Robert Smith's voice is, I mean, it's perfect. It is weird that his voice hasn't aged at all, and it just sounds amazing. The sign of a great record is when you put it on, you want to live in that world. And that's kind of what I felt every time I put this record on. I'm just like, yeah, I just want to be here. I just want to be in this sonic landscape, in this mood, in this environment. And I think that that's a sign of a fantastic record, and by far the best record of 2024, which is it's a miracle. It's like, you know, a band like The Cure can put out one of their best records today. I mean, imagine that. That's such a privilege to be part of that and to be able to buy that and listen to it for the first time. Whew. Wonderful. There you have it. Those are my favorite records of 2024. Did I get it right? What's your favorite record of 2024? What did I miss? And what did I get completely wrong? Thank you for watching. It means a lot to me. And as always, until next time, stay wild, my friends. Bye-bye.